John Wayne. Movies were invented with more than 100 years ago. With them, the first movie stars were born over the last century. There have been many stars, but there was never a star quite like John Wayne. He was a legend, and he was a symbol of what a real man should be. He was also a symbol of what America can be tough. If their own self-reliant and big freedom-loving generosity. John Wayne book, a real man never look for trouble. But if trouble comes, he never back down. America should be that way too. John, no one could play a tough guy quite like John Wayne. If we want to look tough, he once said, then talk low, talk slow, and don't say too much. His name was not always John Wayne. John Wayne was born Mervyn Morrison. He was over a big guy, both he weighed 13 pounds, about twice as a normal baby. He was on May 26, 1907, in a small Ohio of Winterset. Allison could remember Mervyn hated his name. He thought it was a girl's name. Certain taught him about him. Those who murdered us to us ruined Scots, they would say, and they would laugh at him. Mervyn got into many fights over this, and this one reason why he became so tough. He was determined to get rid of his name the first chance he got, so he adopted a nickname Duke, and that what his friends would call him for the rest of his life. Life was tough in those days, and the Morrisons were poor, but the hardest thing for Duke to bear was not poverty or even the fights in school. The hardest thing for this big, strong, quiet boy to bear was seeing his father fail. His father, Cry Morrison, was a very kind man, but he was never any good at business. He was a pharmacist and owned his own store, but a lot of time he gave away medicine for free to people who promised to pay him back. Not all of them did, and Cry was sometimes too polite to remind them. And then he went bankrupt was his pharmacy. Duke murdered Mary. I would call Molly was not as kind. She would often berate her husband and tell him he was no good. When she did that, Duke would stay away from the house, wandering outside for hours, just so he didn't have to hear it. When he was older, Duke would say, I wish my father knew how much I loved him. Next, Cry tried his hand at farming. They moved to a homestead Cry's father had bought in Southern California. America had the one spread out to reach the Pacific Ocean. California had been admitted into the Union as a state more than half a century before, in 1850. It was no longer the Wild West, but the place was still wild. The Morrison lived in the house that was worth more than a sack. They had nowhere to exit, no one in water. Quiet first tried to grow corn and wheat, two crops that could bring in a lot of money. But these crops did grow well on the farm. The mountain wave near the Mojave Desert. Corn and wheat need a lot of water. There was enough rain. Quiet plants died, and most of what was left was eaten by jackrabbits. Quiet was just barely able to feed his family of four. Duke with their brother Robert and his wife Molly and himself. They got by most days on potatoes and beans. They didn't have a horse. The whole name was Chinny. Duke wanted to ride when he was very young. This is why he was so good at it. Later in his movies, he would wake up at 5 in the morning to help with the chores on the farm. Then he would ride Jenny to school 8 miles away and then 8 miles back. He was just 8 years old. Sometimes he would pick up groceries for his family in town and bring them home. On his way back from school, the other kids envied him. Duke was as sure on horseback as they were on foot. Then finally it seemed White Wife would get butter. Christ started growing black-eyed peas, which was butter suitable to the climate. Soon they had 5 acres. A beautiful green sprout Fuchs seemed bright. Did the sprouts grow, they would have a beautiful harvest. I could sell the peas for mugs. Needed money, so many things needed fixing around the house. Quiet was happy and decided that the family could finally afford a short vacation. They left the farm for the weekend, a weekend of fun and a great time. But when they returned, it was late. The sky had fallen under its jackrabbits had eaten everything. Nothing was left from all of the beautiful green sprouts. They stared at the barren fields and sobbed. Quiet walked through the dry fields when a man who had lost his way. There were tears in his eyes. All of the hard work and all of the big hopes now were in waste under the murky desert sun. It didn't take Mara long to start braiding her husband again. She told him she knew nothing good would ever come of anything he did. Duke was too young to support his father, but he never forgot the day. In the end, Moses gave up the farm and moved to Glendale, California. Quiet took a job at a pharmacy. For Duke, there was one great thing about Glendale. It had a movie theater, and it was there that Duke fell in love with the cinema. He worked a newspaper-driven route and saved every penny he could in order to buy movie tickets. In the darkness of the theater, he would forget himself and his family troubles. He spent hours there, sometimes watching the same film over and over. He liked westerns. Most of all, his favorite star was Tom Mix, who played the tough cowboys. Duke, well, for Tom Mix is how he got his nickname. He loved animals. When he found a guide dog, he named him after the dog that played along Tom Mix in his moves. Duke. Duke, the dog, loved to hang out at Grinder Farmhouse, where his owner was in school. So the fireman soon started calling the Duke with the Duke and the boy, who was now big and tall. Big Duke, the name stuck. The fireman liked them both, the friendly dog and the big, excited, thoughtful boy. They could tell that Big Duke was lonely, so they made sure to show him they cared with a good water or a glass of milk. Duke got into lots of fights at school back then. He wouldn't back down when kids laughed at his name. He was a strong boy, so he was okay most of the time. But sometimes older and stronger boys would pick on him, and though he could hold his own, he would take a rough beating every now and then. The fireman would see his bruises when he passed by the farmhouse on his way home. He was not the type to complain, but they saw his pain. They saw that he had no one to talk to, and they wanted to help him out. Hey Duke, a fireman said one time, why don't you come over to the firehouse? I teach you some boxing. What do you say? Why, I so like that, Duke said. He loved these brave guys who risked their lives to save the lives of strangers. His knew in the crowd, boxing skills came in handy. All the boys would soon discover that Duke could give as good as he got. Who can bet he never looked for trouble, but he sure did back down if it came. Later, his fans would think John Wayne as a rough guy, but the truth was that he was also a good student. He was class president during his senior year of high school, and his good grades earned him admission to USC, the University of Southern California. He planned to be a warlord, but his family didn't have enough money to pay for the tuition. He may have never gone there, but he had also been a good athlete. He qualified for the USC football team. The Trojans working for him. University football players got scholarships. The university helped them pay for their studies, so Duke could go to USC, but he never became a warrior. Instead, it was USC that helped him make him a movie star. To do this was it anyone intention. It all came together by chance, and it all started with Tom Mix, was the same Tom Mix that Duke admired because we see Mix for football. The Trojans coach had a deal with Tom Mix. They would give him tickets to the best seats at the games. In exchange, Tom Mix would help the players get summer jobs at film studios. This is how Duke got his first job as a prop man. The prop man was responsible for getting all the fixed objects the actors handle on a film set. If an actor played a paxer, the prop man would get him a suitcase. Or if the director wants to shoot a scene with autumn leaf blowing in the wind, they can't wait for autumn to shoot it. Then a prominent white Duke stand by hooks fan doorways in the air, so the fan can blow them past the actors. There are hundreds of such things the Paramount needs to take care of. Cater's telephone pixels on both buying barnacles, even a cooked Thanksgiving turkey if we have a Thanksgiving dinner scene in the film. When summer break was over, Duke's job as a plumber was over too. Duke went back to college to study and pray for the toxins. One day was suffering, he injured his shoulder. He tried to hide it, but it was no use. He couldn't play football with a back shoulder, so he washed his football scholarships and had no money to pay for his studies. He ended up taking a year off from USC and turned his summer job into a full-time job. He became a prop man. And the idea was to save enough money to go back to college, but it wasn't to be, because fate intervened. One day, a famous doctor named Will Ross saw the big, handsome plumber carrying an armchair over his head. Here, the one fellow, he said, "How would you like to be in the picture? This is what they used to call moves back then." And I liked it. White well, said Duke. They used to say white well and stuff very much back then. Why don't you? What the hell, go for 4 weeks and come back to me, said Ross. And believe it or not, this is how Duke got his first sweet war. It makes the most picture called The Big Trail. In The Big Trail, Duke played a trapper named Bob Coleman, who joined a wagon caravan of settlers heading west on the Oregon Trail. He plans to follow the bad guy who escaped to the Wild West. What was the Wild West? Why would people risk everything they had to get there? The West back then was a place of boundless opportunities. We could start over and make a new life for ourselves. We could buy cheap land and cultivate it. We could get rugged and find gold in the earth. But it was also a place of great risks. War with Native American tribes who could break out at any time. Crops could fail, or bandmen could harness, or even rob you. And the problem was that there was no one in the wild western frontier to enforce the law. There was no court sweat. There wasn't even a priest. For both heroes and villains, for the bold and the reckless, for the brave and the free, the trailblazer and pioneers, also for conmen and criminals. It was a place of big dreams that also could turn nightmares. Actually, it was a perfect place for movies, because life in the Wild West could put people to the test. Anything could happen there. And then Buck Coleman, the character that Duke played, find the bandman and make sure justice is served. Along he meets a girl and they fell in love. Just right in the movies, because of course it is a movie. Though one more reason why Big Trail is memorable, it was there Duke got his screen name. The producers did right the name Marin Morris. They also did think Duke Morris sounded like a star name, so without even asking him, they decided to call him John Wayne. Duke discovered his new name only when he saw it on the big screen. Imagine that. A good thing that he liked his new name because it stuck. From then on, the whole world would know him by as Mixer John Wayne. John Wayne played many hero roles. It seemed to suit him naturally. His voice, his size, and the way he looked people in the eye. He spoke well. He spoke slow. He didn't say too much. But when he said something, who knew he meant it? And the bad guys seemed to know this too. If cross him, who cross him at their own peril. John Wayne starred in many more films. The side boy whom kids harass knew of his name because most famous of all movie stars. One of the secrets to his success that John Wayne stayed true to Duke Morris. He always acted honorable to men and women alike, and he always observed this rule. The character he played would never shoot anyone in the back. John Wayne behaved just like Duke Morris. Brave men should be tough but always fair, but just when it is easy, but also when it's hard. In a famous movie called The Man Who Sought Will Be Violence, John Wayne character Tom Down protect the innocent from bad men with a violent gang of dogs. There is also, of course, the girl he loved. Her name is Harry. One day, these dogs beat up a young warrior named one Harry that treat was wounds and fell in love with him. He this hurt Tom very much because he dreamed of marrying Harry one day, but he says nothing. Wes is not a coward. He decided to avenge his honor and challenge the Willoughby Violence to a gunfight. They face off in a duel. Willoughby Violence wrath. He is so good with his gun, and that he saw once had no chance, but against all odds, when the last shot is fired, the bad man Willoughby runs that falls. Everything was shot. Willoughby runs, and they all consider him a hero. But it was not Rance, it was Tom. He knew Rance couldn't win, so he shot Willoughby Rance from the saddles. Willoughby Rance is the hero, and she married him. Tom loved her so much that he doesn't want to spoil her happiness by telling her the man she married is not the hero that she thinks he is. He keep it all to himself, even though his own heart is broken. This was the kind of man Duke loved to play, tough on his image, word to his friend. It's a gentleman with women and deeply committed to those he loved. One day, when he was already a famous star, Duke went to USC to help raise money for Children's Hospital. Walking to the campus of his old university, he saw students protesting against the war in Vietnam. America entered the war to protect their means from attacks by its neighbor, the colony, in its North Vietnamese. The students thought America had no business fighting there. Then a young Marine in uniform walked by. The students started to shout at him. They called him names. They taunted him. Only then Duke noticed that one of the young Marine's sleeves was empty and attached with a pin into his jacket. He lost his arm in the war, defending South Vietnam. Duke came over to speak with him. The white Marine said, "I just known him," but he was off glad to have John Wayne on his side. Duke blood was born. He walked over to the protesters, students. He protest students and banged his fist on the table. How they were inside this one man, Duke wanted to know. "We have no business in Vietnam," one stood. "Well," said Duke, "we can protest against the readers who sent him there if we want, but we have no business insulting an animal or a man who put his life on the line for other people who should be ashamed of ourselves." It was then and there that Duke decided to make a movie about a brave American man like that Marine who lost his arm. Men fighting to protect the freedom of a faraway people as the United States has often done. The movie was called The Green Berets because Marines wear green beret hats. John Wayne played Colonel Mike Copy, a Marine commander who led his men through the jungles of Vietnam. What of people who believe that America should have now gotten involved in the war in Vietnam were angry at John Wayne, but he stood by his film. His film convinced that America should stand up against the enemies of freedom, because when trouble comes, we just don't back down. John Wayne made movies as long as he could. 3 years before his death, he made his last one, The Suitors. It was a story of an old man, J. B. Brooks, who was once a sheriff. No one could use a gun as well as Brooks could, but now he is terribly ill. He knew he doesn't have much time left, so he chose to do battle against 3 bad men. If he has to go down, he go down fighting. The Duke himself was very ill. The people who worked with him on the film had a creeping bad feeling. Was Duke's life started to resemble the story of his character too closely? Would John Wayne go down shooting a film as the character he played goes down shooting his gun? The Duke had beaten one country many years before, but it cost him one wrong, and he now had only one, and it was infected with paranoia. They had to stop shooting the film for a while. There were many whispers around the set. What if he didn't recover? Some even considered finishing the film with someone who worked like the Duke. But John Wayne was no quitter. He finished the film. He played it to the last scene, and Duke's Brooke died while himself preserved and recovered. Generations of stars came and went, but there was only one John Wayne. He towered over them all. Duke retired after the Swedish father devoted his time to the one that he loved, Max, as making movies. He spent time with his 7 children and many grandchildren. He loved to take them on his walk. where they would fish and chat and laugh, sometimes just stare inside, wondering the vast blue ocean. For the entire world, the Duke was the famous, tough John Wayne, and for them, Duke was daddy and grandpa and father and grandfather who loved to play and joke around. Duke John Wayne passed away in 1979, but his moves will live forever, and with them, the great ideas Duke breathed in, ideas about American war and protecting freedom around the world, about manhood and about honor, about what this great country should always be aspired to be, a big, tough, generous nation that does not look for trouble but will never back down if it comes. The first movie he starred in, Big Tour, was actually a box office failure. John Wayne made more than 200 films. For a decade after the Big Tour, he was not considered a star, only got roles in cheap B movies. He Pacific's American troops in Vietnam several times to show them his support. He once said, "I'm grateful for every day of my life that has spent in the United States of America." He was awarded the President's Medal of Freedom after his death. After his death from cancer, his children founded John Wayne Cancer Foundation to help fight the disease.